What's up guys, my name is Fran and welcome back to the channel. And this video is going to be part 2 to my 2-part series all about my brand new SSD storage server, Project Cambridge. So if my memory serves me correctly, in part 1 of this series, we took a look at the hardware going inside of my server. So the motherboard, the processor, the add-on cards, and of course, what type of hard drives I plan on using. So in part 2, we're going to be checking out the other side of the spectrum. We're going to be checking out what type of operating system I plan on using, we're going to be doing some performance tests, and we're also going to try to figure out how I plan on adding another 8 hard drives to total out 16 hard drives in a server case that only has 8 bays. So for now, let's head over to our server and try to figure out how that last point is even possible. Okay, so here we are at my storage server in a very dark corner of my apartment. In fact, it's so dark I'm gonna have to turn on this video light here just so we have enough where we can actually see. So I'm just gonna get up a little bit closer right over here. So as you guys can hopefully see, the system is fully set up and running. So I got my 10 gig card, my 2 LSI cards, and just over here, in fact, let me just adjust the camera a tad bit. All right, so while we got all of our hard drive bays down here, just up here to the top, this is actually the little magic secret sauce that's going to make it possible for us to have a total of 16 hard drives inside of this 8-bay storage server. But if we swing around here to the front of the system when we open up this bay, this is actually my secret weapon. This is my IC Bay dock. Now as you guys can see, it fits inside of a 5.25 inch optical drive slot, and if you pop this thing right open here, I'm not going to open up all of them, but as you can see, we have a 2.5 inch hard drive bay, and in the back of the system we actually have 6 SATA ports, and out of those 6 SATA ports we're actually able to go ahead and connect that up to our LSI card, making it possible for us to have a total of another 12 hard drives in here if we decided to get a different LSI card that can handle that kind of capacity. But as of right now, I plan on only sticking in another 8. So what operating system did I choose to manage my 40 plus terabytes of network attached storage? Well, for most people who've already seen part 1 to this series, you probably already know the answer to this, but I decided to go back to FreeNAS. Now there are a number of reasons as to why I decided to switch back over to FreeNAS from Xminology. Now don't get me wrong, I absolutely love DSM, it's a great operating system, but because I was running Xminology, I wasn't able to run any of my security updates, and that kind of made me paranoid. And then there was also the idea in the back of my head that one day I'd restart my server and I'd lose access to all of my 40 terabytes of data, and that's just something I couldn't live with. So right before we jump into the performance test, let's take a quick look at my FreeNAS setup. So as you guys can see, I'm running FreeNAS 11.2, the latest version. As you also can see, I'm running that Intel Xeon processor, the E5-2670, 8 cores and 16 threads at 2.6 gigahertz, and a Ken Turbo Boost. I've got 64 gigabytes of RAM, and you guys can see it's been up and running for around 19 days. So pretty good stability wise. Just to the right of that, you can see my ZFS pool. This is my 8 6 terabyte hard drives that are actually running in RAID. It actually has a little bit more than 8 because I do have an SSD cache in there. More on that a little bit later in the video. And just to the left of that, you can see my SSD storage ZFS pool. This is my 4 2 terabyte Samsung QVO SSDs that are all running in RAID 0. And aside from those 2 ZFS pools, my setup is not all that complicated. They're both running in SMB and NFS, and I'm not running any jails or anything like that. It's a pretty bare bones system. So now I'm going to take a quick moment to switch up my recording setup, and let's check out the performance of this network attached storage drive. But first, a quick look at our hardware and testing conditions. So I tested both Mac OS and Windows operating systems. Now for our Mac system, we used the CalDigit 10G. And for our Windows system, we ended up using the Asus XG C100C. Now while on average our Windows system did yield higher transfer speeds, for this video I'll be heavily focusing on the Mac OS performance, as my only concern is using this setup for Final Cut. And while I do have 2 ZFS pools, one being a hybrid RAID array with SSD caching and the other being an all SSD RAID array, for this particular video I'll be heavily focusing on the performance of the all SSD RAID array because that's what I'll be doing all of my Final Cut editing off of. Now there are multiple ways to benchmark the speed of a NAS, and for our first test we're going to be using a pretty basic method. We'll just be simply copying data from our local disk and copying it up to our network attached storage and then back. I'll be testing in both SMB and NFS protocols, and the results are the average of 3 different runs. So when testing in the NFS protocol, I consistently got transfer speeds at 400 to 500 megabytes per second on both uploads and downloads as well. And when switching things over to the SMB protocol, I saw consistently slower transfer speeds of around 200 to 300 megabytes per second upload and download, and sometimes we even saw a dip to as low as around 120 megabytes per second. Now for our next round of tests, I turned to a piece of software. Now the name of this this software is actually called LAN Speed Test, and the name is pretty self-explanatory. It's built to help you benchmark the speed of your LAN and give you detailed results. And well, here are the results of those LAN speed tests. And then finally, there was the scrubbing test. And no surprises here. While editing 4K Blackmagic RAW footage off of my network attached storage drive, I had absolutely no issues scrubbing through my timeline. So while having that all SSD RAID array did make it possible for me to edit footage directly off of my network attached storage, it wasn't without any flaw. I did definitely feel a little bit of a lag or a delay in comparison to using my Samsung T5 drive. Now admittedly, I only noticed it when making certain actions such as adding music to my timeline or adding a certain effect to my footage. So while I might have to reconsider that particular portion of the architecture of my storage server, I'll definitely be keeping that 40 terabyte hybrid RAID array. Okay, so that is gonna wrap it up for this video on my storage server Project Cambridge. As always, if you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns about my storage server or anything technical at all, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. Also, while you guys are down there, if you like this video, hit the like button, and if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, consider subscribing. Once again, guys, my name is Fran. Thanks for checking out this video, and I'll see you guys in my next one.